Hello, Cal Discoveries travelers and friends, and thanks for watching today. I'm Nancy McNeil, Assistant Director of Cal Discoveries Travel. Our interview today will bring a new dimension to the world of Cal Discoveries Travel. I am thrilled to be interviewing Jackie Olson, who was the Director for Cal Discoveries Travel for over 20 years. And since 1992, she has been the tour manager on 48 of our trips. Jackie knows just about everything there is to know about Cal Discoveries Travel. The nuts and bolts of planning and deciding on which trips we will offer, the importance of connecting with the Cal group, helping the tour director to manage details of the itinerary, remaining flexible in situations where needed changes must come about, and making sure the air travel was and is as smooth as possible. Her many years of group travel have given her so many experiences and valuable insights into our industry. Jackie, what has been your association with Cal and or the Cal Alumni Association?
I started working at the university at the Alumni Association. I think it was in the 70s. I can't remember the exact year. If you have it, I can't remember it. I thought 78, but that doesn't seem right. But anyway, I started as the receptionist. And in those days, they didn't have computers. And so you had to answer the phone and you had to take a message. And one thing about being the receptionist, because I had stayed home for a long time. Well, I hadn't worked. I went to college, got married, had kids, and then stayed home. So I wanted to, my son had gone off to college and I wanted a job, and that came up and I got the job. And I worked for the woman Diane Cook, and she was the head of the board of directors. And so she oversaw my position, and she also asked me to be able to help out with the different offices. So because you saw the phone, I was answering the phones, and I could see what offices were impacted, like scholarships, and sometimes were really impacted, membership at other times. And travel had just gotten started, and Carolyn Sheaf was the director. And so I was answering a lot of calls for her because she was on calls with tour operators, and she was working with Peter Vole a lot, who was the director of travel at Stanford. And he had been a travel agent, a travel producer prior to universities going into educational travel. So I saw that she was impacted, and I says, why don't you bring me some brochures out here and I'll address them and send them out to people who call. That way I don't have to give you a bunch of messages at the end of the day that you're gonna have to end up doing. So she liked that idea. So that's how I got started with travel. And so after about 3 years of doing travel at the front desk, I was asked to make a choice. Would I want to go into travel? Because she had no assistant then. She had a student that would come in and do some data entry, because we did have data entry, but you still had to type on typewriters, and you didn't have answering machines. So I did I loved being the receptionist, but the travel I enjoyed too. I enjoyed talking to people. That was my favorite part of the travel, and part of being the reception is just, talking to people and helping them. And so so I went to work for Carolyn, and I took my first trip, which was a trip to maybe it's my second trip. One of my first trips was to Charleston and Savannah with Jack Dold, who was a tour operator who used to write trips specifically for Cal. And they were some international, but mostly national. And he would work with faculty to design trips. So Carolyn said, I want you to go with Jack Dold because he's one of the best in the business, and he'll teach you how to be a tour manager. And so I did. I went with him and I watched everything he did. And in those days, that was a trip of about 46 people. So I think he would get 49 in the bus that held 52. Always had a spare seat in case somebody needed to lay down. But anyway, that's how I got started in travel. And it's been a wonderful adventure. And I've been blessed to have it as part of my life with the people that I've met through travel, the people I've worked with, like you and JoJo and Chris Jameson and Carolyn, have all contributed to my having a great experience. So that's how I got started.
That's a great story, Jackie, and it does set you up and gives you the experience, certainly, that comes naturally obvious to you for customer service and just relating to our travelers. Mm-hmm. Before we go on with questions, though, there is this most beautiful photo behind me that you had something to do with. I bet our travelers are wondering where in the world you were, if you wouldn't mind telling us.
I think that's my last big trip which was, I think it was the spring of last year or the year before. Yeah, last year. Mm-hmm. That was to Chile. And that is Torres del Paine National Park. And we were actually, from that picture, we went up closer. We were standing right at the bottom of that. And the wind was blowing so hard that I didn't think I could make it. They had like posts where you could hold on to because the winds are so strong up there. So there was a place that I could hold on to, and I was standing back because I thought, well, I'm going to get blown over. So then the tour director came down and he said, because I guess somebody told him I wasn't going to go up because I was afraid to go up. And he came down, he says, you've come this far, you're going to go. So he took my arm and here we went against the wind and I made it. But it was a fabulous trip. It was absolutely glorious. Just being there, we did some wonderful hikes and the people were so wonderful that I traveled always. That, very rarely do you have somebody who is, not a good traveler with Cal people. They're usually always wonderful travelers and go with the flow, and they're people. They enjoy being around people and they enjoy learning. That trip was we didn't have a faculty with us, and that's why I went. But part of the job of a travel manager is to go and to evaluate the educational component, number one, to assist the faculty if the faculty is there, to evaluate the trip, evaluate not only the whole trip, but everything about it, the air travel, the accommodations, the food, the lecturers, the local lecturers. So all of that goes into a report at the end of the trip that we use when we decide to have trips again with that particular tour operator. That way that if they come up to us with it, they want to present their trips to us, and we happen to have one that needed some help, then we have the opportunity to let them know that. After the trips, we turn in that report. All of the travelers turn in an evaluation. And so with all of that in hand, that's when we can work with the tour planners the tour operators to make the trip better, and to get out the kinks, and to make sure. One of the trips that I did, it was early on, it was to a new area. It was the Veneto, and we were staying in this hotel, and the hotel wasn't bad, and it wasn't too far from Venice, but it was out close to, from there we could go to Vienna and all of the Veneto area. But the food wasn't very good, but everybody was a good sport. But one night they served this fish, and it really smelled really bad. And so we were all there, and everybody's looking at it. Some people were eating it, and I just, they give you these little wipes with lemon on them. And so I just laid that over my fish, and I had conversation and drank wine. And so this one woman said, I think my husband used this for bait. And I said, I think mine did too. But that was one thing when we talked to that tour operator. I said, you can't serve this kind of meals to use this place anymore unless they change. And sure enough, that trip was dropped. They dropped it. they got enough response back. So that's the, you know, the partnership that you have with the tour planner, the tour operator, and the participants make for good trips. You can't do it by yourself. You have to have all.
You certainly can't, Jackie. You certainly can't. And there's a lot that goes into making Cal Discoveries Travel the very best that we can be. And it's a lot of our travel friends, travel managers, lecturers, helping us to make the trips the best that we can. And yes, the photo is fabulous. It looks like a professional photo. And in this case, after hearing about the circumstances behind it, it doesn't always tell a story, does it? But I know that you have a lot of beautiful, beautiful photos from all over the world. And you shared one of sort of an unexpected, maybe humorous event experience on a Cal trip. Do you have one more, Jackie, that you could share with us?
A funny one? Oh,
if you like, or just something unexpected or memorable.
Well, I'll tell you what. Today in the New York Times, there was an article by Ruth Reichel, and she's a cookbook author, and she travels all over the world. And so she was talking about travel, and it was so touching. The experiences you have, and you know, I love to cook, so the experience around food and people, those are experiences that you know, that I'll never forget. It's wonderful. We were in Florence, and we went to this restaurant that everybody said you had to eat, and they make this big bistecca, this steak that's well, it was enough to feed 4 people. And so I went with 2 of the other women on the trip, and we finally sat down because there was a long line waiting, and there was a whole soccer team of guys behind us, and we're sitting at this little table, and they bring the steak out, and there was a girl there, and she came and sat with us. Because you sit at communal tables, so we had a table of 4, and we had 1 empty seat, and so they invited this girl to sit. They asked if it was okay. Well, she was from Denmark. And so she came in to have lunch, and she was ordering pasta. And I says, well, you have to have some steak with us. We have this huge steak. And she says, oh, I'm so glad you invited me. She says, I could never afford to. She was a student. I could never afford to have that steak, and I've heard about it. And so we sat there with this girl from Denmark, and we had wonderful conversation about her experiences being a student in Florence. And we had a wonderful dinner and lunch. It was midday, and all the soccer guys were infatuated with this beautiful blonde Danish girl. So it was really fun.
So the unexpected pleasures of travel that just come about that way.
Another time that was magical is being in Egypt, and we were at the what's the name of that hotel? It's in Luxor, and it's an old British hotel. And I was in the gardens. You go in the gardens in the back, and it was just at sunset. So they had these magical lights stringing through the gardens. And all of a sudden, the imam comes out and he starts the prayer, you know, the prayer over the loudspeakers. And you hear this, and I heard frogs croaking in the ponds, and the lights, and this wonderful, wonderful man singing to Allah. And I just stood there and with goosebumps and thought, oh my God, I was looking around for the Cheshire Cat. It was magical. And so those kinds of experiences, you can't get anyplace else. You can't get Egypt outside of Egypt. You can't get Paris outside of Paris. You can't get the Great Wall anywhere but China. Those kinds of experiences, and anybody that you talk to that travels will tell you the same thing. The educational component is also wonderful and strong. You have wonderful faculty to choose from. And sorry, I thought I turned it off. And
no worries.
And So those things you can't, you can be an armchair traveler, but to be there in those experiences and to meet the people are the most fascinating things on your travels.
So very, very true. I know that you connect really nicely with our Cal travelers. Do you, the friendships that you've made, Jackie, how do you still keep in touch with them?
Oh, we go to dinner, we go to lunch, we go to the museum. I have friends that, well, Sherry Brigham, Sherry. Sherry and I traveled together in 2001 to Egypt, and she was on that trip with me. And that's the first time we had met, and we found out that we both live in El Cerrito. We were both recent widows, and we've been fast friends since then.
I know that you've kept in touch with many of the past Cal travelers.
Yeah.
I'm going to change the subject a little bit, Jackie, so we can see if we can get a little bit relevant and your insights and viewpoint on when certain world events affect travel. So while you were travel director when 9/11 occurred, you saw how that event affected travel and then lived through the eventual revival of the industry back then. So based on your 9/11 experience, I'm curious how you think travel will rebound once COVID-19 has been dealt with satisfactorily.
Well, I know it will. It will rebound. We've rebounded from 9/11, from the downturn in the economy. That year we went from 1,500 passengers to 800 passengers, and it took us a few years to get, a couple of years to get back up. But people have an innate desire to travel, to see the world, and the older they get and the more leisure time they have, and they do it, whether they can afford to do our trips or do their own trips or do any trips. People travel. And I know that the industry is taking a huge hit now, and a lot of smaller companies aren't going to make it, just like our restaurants and other things, but it will come back. And it just, it depends on you working now, and your department and the people who you work for, the leaders at Cal Alumni, that know the value of travel and that stay with you till you get this done, till you work through this, because it will come back. And I think having these videos, keeping the communication open via Zoom calls with people, or I know you're going to put this online, but I think that's a wonderful idea. And even virtual travel, where people can go and look at past trips with pictures of past trips, and Cal people mingling together at dinners or whatever. If you can find, I think all of that is great, because I know it will come back.
Well, thank you for that vote of confidence. We are too. We're very optimistic, actually, and have a great lineup for next year, 2021, on our website. What do you feel is important to know, and the benefits of group travel during uncertain times? What is the benefit, Jackie?
Well, it's not only uncertain times, it's any time. Group travel is a great venue, especially for single women at a certain age. And you can feel confident because you're going to feel safe. You're going to be with a group. You're going to have people there that are looking out for your welfare. And the group experience, you meet people, you meet friends that'll be lifelong friends. So I think the traveling with Cal Travel is bringing people who are, I hate this term, but I can't think of another one that works for it, is like-minded. People who enjoy the same things. They enjoy the educational component. They enjoy meeting people. They enjoy experiencing new experiences. They're people who want to learn. They want to constantly be learning. So they're interesting themselves, and they have that to share with other people. So I think that all of those things together are what make the program. And and I think that that's the benefit of group travel.
Yeah, thanks for touching on all those. And the other thing is, you know, the airlines, the air travel, Jackie.
Yeah.
And the nice thing that I've experienced, and you have too, you've traveled way more than I have, is that if there are delays, if there are cancellations, you've got your tour operator people available to help you get through those. Can you think of a situation where something happened like that, and because we were a group and we were traveling with one of our tour operators, it actually made for a very smooth air transition from something that changed from what travelers were originally expecting?
You know, I never had an incident where that happened to me with a group that I was with, except for as part of the director's position, we do site inspections. So we're invited with other travel planners to join a group and then go see a place that a tour operator wants us to see, so that he can sell it to us. So that's one selling point that they have, and they bring a group together. When the volcanoes erupted in Iceland, I was on my way to Egypt with some of the other travel planners from California. There was UCLA, SC, Washington, and Oregon had a small plan. So there were a few of us from this end. There were a bunch from the Midwest, and there were a bunch from the Ivies, and then the tour operators had already gone there. Well, we got as far as Washington, Seattle, and the planes were down. You couldn't go. So I called from the airport to Alumni Holidays, who was planning this trip, and I said, you know, what do we do? And they said, well, just hang out there. We'll get you a hotel tonight until we find out what's going on. So all of the women that I was with, we all went to a hotel, and we called Pauline Ranieri, who was the director of the travel program there. And so she met us all, and we all went out to dinner, but it was a smooth transition for them. They ended up canceling that program because you couldn't fly. So everybody went home, but the travel planners that had made it to Frankfurt were stuck there for over a week. And the travel operators who were in Egypt were there for almost 3 weeks before they had to go through, I think it was, they had to go through Turkey in order to get home. The other time that I had an experience is I was also on another trip going to the Danube, and I got to Newark, and the flight was canceled. So they canceled the flight for some reason. So I called the tour operator, and they arranged for me to have a hotel, and I took off the next morning. So I missed the first day in Prague, but I met the other planners, you know, on the day after that. But the tour operator, you're exactly right. You call the tour operator and they'll tell you what to do. Now, if you were on your own, you'd have to figure it out. But there's always somebody to call.
Yeah.
You know,
no, I hope our travelers are really getting a feel for those that have not traveled with us.
Yeah.
Really how much planning and support that we have
support
with our tour operators and those that are helping for the trip to make it the best that it can be. These things happen, and our bottom line is we're flexible. It's really the way that we are, and hope that our travelers will be as well when they're traveling with us. Yeah. Jackie, I cannot thank you enough for being with us today. You've given us a whole nother insight based on your experiences and your longtime friendship with Cal Discoveries Travel and all of our travelers. Thank you so much for letting us get to know you a little bit more, and for sharing all of the wonderful experiences that you bring and have brought to Cal Discoveries Travel. You're such a wonderful friend. Thank you again. And for our viewers, our hope is that despite the uncertain times and ever-changing daily circumstances, we hope that our interview has inspired you to dream about traveling with Cal Discoveries Travel. Please visit our website at alumni.berkeley.edu/travel, where you can see our incredible 2021 program lineup with over 70 trips, both domestic and abroad, from which to choose. So long for now, and may you and your family stay healthy.
Bye.